Hi everyone, Carla Pinheiro-Sublett here, and welcome back to this episode of Let's Go There. I talked to my friend Karen Hawkins. She's a contemporary sculpture artist based in Austin. A fine arts graduate from the University of Texas, Karen has exhibited her work all around the country. I invited Karen on because she's the sort of woman and mother that I aspire to be. Strong, loving, creative, fun, soulful. You get the picture. She discusses her non-traditional education, marriages, and the challenges of raising a family. Karen also tells us about her latest venture, the Pink Bow Project, with the aim to increase awareness around sexual abuse of our children in our country. Her work aims to combat the shame surrounding sexual assault, with plans to make the project a traveling exhibition. In my opinion, she's moving from artist to activist. This conversation actually gave me the courage to have hard conversations in the hours and days that followed our time together. I hope you enjoy it. Hey y'all, let's go there. Well, I'm going to start this by telling the story about how I met you, Karen Hawkins.
Oh, yeah?
So I actually worked at a spin studio where your daughter was an instructor. My husband and I were devoted to her and would go to her class. And then one day I stumbled upon your work on Instagram and I was like, wow. And I totally coveted one. And I reached out to Melissa and said, I would love one of your mom's pieces. And she introduced us and it was love at first sight for me. And then you magically produced the most beautiful piece for us that means so much to me. It's my favorite piece in our house, one of your totems, so meaningful and precious to me now, especially since we've become friends. And then we also had a bit of a moment, I'd say maybe a year or two later, we ran into each other at the Pilates studio where we both work out now and where your daughter works out too. And you had been in a car accident. And I saw you and I don't know what came over me, but I just grabbed you in that moment.
Yeah.
And it,
I melted
into
you. I remember that.
Oh.
Yeah. And you got to experience the me that approaches a lot of humans like this. There's a big part of me that still does that. So, we met a year and a half before I allowed myself to just melt into you.
Yeah.
And that was something, Carla, because I only do that with a few people. And you have to be really special for me to get there, really special. And you had already exhibited enough interest and compassion and grace toward me and just, and it was like, she's going to be safe. I can trust her.
Mm-hmm.
So I let myself.
I'm super honored by it. And then we figured out we were Pisces twins and our birthdays were so close together.
There are a lot of similarities. Oh, God. Okay.
Oh, wow. What's happening for you right now?
I'm just feeling love toward you.
Oh, my goodness. You're going to make me choke up, but we haven't even started. Woo. Whoa, man. Okay. So let's get to know you, Karen Hawkins, because you are a force of nature in this world. And you are someone that I aspire to be like.
You're sweet.
As a mom, as a woman, as an artist, the relationships that you have with people, you really are goals for me. And so I want to hear about what made you you. So let's go all the way back to the beginning, Georgetown girl.
Well, yeah, I mostly grew up here in Austin. Most of my childhood was spent here. I had little excursions to Georgetown, to Houston. But really, I grew up here from the mid-'60s through the early '80s when Austin was kind of still a small, little, funky hippie town, And I grew up in a big family. My parents had 5 children. I was right in the middle. And they divorced when I was 10. My dad very quickly remarried a woman who had 2. So I got 2 more siblings. So I grew up in this big, chaotic, loud, that's so familiar to me, just the busyness of family life. And it's something that I look back at now and I recognize one of the big sort of attributes that I took out of that was this ability it really honed my peripheral vision of being able to see everything that goes on around me, and take in tiny details of, it made it so that my life was not the center of the universe, I think.
Huh.
Because I saw all these other lives were playing out simultaneously around me. And I think that's one of the things that coming from a big family, that's what happens. It's one of the skills you learn. And it's been very useful, actually. Yeah, it would be foreign to me to have to be an only child or in a small family. It would be so strange. And I think that's one of the things that Rick and I are both really drawn to in each other. He comes from a really big family too. So.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where is he in the birth order?
He's number 2.
Okay. Oh, he doesn't read as a number 2.
Yeah,
that's fascinating. Is the oldest a girl?
No, it's a boy. It's a man also. 5 boys and 1 girl in his family.
Whoa.
And mine was 5 girls and 2 boys. So, yeah.
That's funny. Okay, so how did I mistakenly called you Georgetown girl because I remembered you being from Georgetown, but okay, you grew up in Austin.
I spent 1 year.
Okay.
My last year of high school was in Georgetown.
Okay. Yeah. And what was growing up like in that big family?
Chaotic, crazy. It was I grew up in an era in Texas where it was very male dominant. I was raised in a physically abusive household. A lot of the things that I think a lot of women my age have experienced in life, male dominance, physical abuse, sexual abuse, those are all fairly normal experiences for a lot of women my age growing up in the South and Texas, Yeah. I can't speak for everyone, of course. But
I don't know, Karen.
It's a pretty common experience I've discovered as I've gotten older.
Well, you're speaking for me and you're speaking for a lot of us, unfortunately, which is why your work is so important. And we'll get to that in a bit. So take me to high school. What was that like? Who was Karen in high school?
3 different high schools.
What drove that?
My father, construction industry. He was a plumber.
Okay.
And so we were at that time really following where the work was in the state. So we were between Austin, Houston, and Georgetown all through those 4 years of high school. So I don't have any attachments to, when I hear like my husband who grew up in a small town in Ohio, and he's got friends still today from middle school, elementary school, high school, college. They are all still very, very close. I don't have those experiences. We just moved a lot. And so I really don't have any attachments. And then I don't have the college experience that most people had. I did it very non-traditionally.
Which is part of what I love about your story. I love an unconventional story. So what made it that you had a non-traditional college experience? What stood in the way of it?
I got married right out of high school. I mean, I did not finish high school. I dropped out of high school, a pregnant 18-year-old, and married the man that was the father of my child. And we had 4 years together in a really abusive relationship. I married an addict, and and by 22, I was divorced with 2 children, and very quickly, 6 months later, married another abusive man under the guise of, he's going to protect me. He's going to, be safe. And it just never was. I kept looking for safety in places where I wasn't going to find it because I was just I was a damaged, broken little girl. And what I've learned since then is that the men who are showing up in your life when you are a damaged, broken little girl, they are not there to protect you. They are there to take advantage of you. And so it was a long time. It was 10, 15 years later before, at the age of 34 with 2 failed marriages, I was like, you know what? These Prince Charming stories are bullshit. No one is coming to save me. I'm going to have to do this myself. And I just had to figure out how I was going to live my life without being eaten up and chewed up and spit out, and it required me doing I just dove headfirst into a new experience to take care of myself.
And how did you do that?
Therapy. I got a divorce, got out of my abusive relationship, lots of therapy, trying to figure out what it was that was going to be my passion. And, because I was such a young mother, by the time I was 36 years old, I was sending my oldest daughter off to college already. Learning how to become an adult separate from your children when I was a child parent it's been a part of my process, And so by the time I was 40, my kids were grown and out of the house, and I went back to school. I went to school, went to UT, and I knew early on, I've always been very, working with my hands has been something that I've done my whole life. I first started, ways in which I could work with my hands as a kid, was, mostly domestic things like cooking and sewing and needlework and some gardening. And then as I got older, I was really fascinated by my father's work. Watching his labor was something that was really fascinating to me because he was a plumber, and I would watch him put together the infrastructure for a construction site or something. And it just, that mechanical structure I was really drawn to it.
That makes so much sense now, seeing your work, because there's definitely a mechanical component to your work in terms of how it comes together. Oh, wow. That's so incredible.
But it was what I learned was that the process of using my hands to make was so calming to my nervous system. It was like, so it just became a path that I was just destined to go down.
And so you found yourself at UT?
Yep.
And at 40?
At 40.
What was that like?
Crazy, fun, exciting, exhilarating. It was, I loved it.
And did you go straight away into art?
So I had a really unusual pathway. Like I'd taken some classes when I was in my 20s at night, where I was really kind of taking math and accounting because my brain is very drawn to math, and it was easy for me. And so I thought maybe that's the direction I would go, and switch paths later on as I was going through my divorce. I thought maybe social work would be, because I was really dealing with a lot of my own personal traumas, and thought maybe that would be an interesting pathway. And then moved over. The very first time I took a 3-dimensional art class, though, I knew, I was like, oh,
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And then what was going on at home at that time? Had Rick come into your life?
Yeah. So Rick showed up a couple of years after my divorce. And I was in this major transformative phase of life where I was really shedding a lot of my history and trying to own who I was as a woman. And Rick was just, he still is just this brilliant light in my life. He really is. He is the epitome of just male goodness. He's a really good man. And
he's such an awesome model of masculinity.
He is. Yeah, he really is. He's, the college football player, and he's a guy's guy. People love him. He's a good guy.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, he's been a great husband. He's been a great father figure to my daughters. And a wonderful grandfather.
Yeah. And y'all merged families.
We did.
You got sons out of the deal.
I came with 3 daughters, and Rick had 2 sons. And the 4, so our 4 oldest children, Melissa is the youngest, and she's 8 years younger than the oldest. And so the other 3 are piled in between there, but they're all a year apart at the top end. So Jennifer and Sarah and Melissa and then Zach and Ben. And we had I was really comfortable and familiar with the whole big family model. So it was chaotic and crazy and exhausting.
Yeah. And how old were the kids at this time?
So when we met, they were
still little, right?
Jennifer was already about 17.
Yeah.
So she was a teenager. So Sarah would have been 15. Ben was about 15, 14, 13, and Melissa was 8.